Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mosaic Podcast, where we invite people from all walks of life to share with you their stories, and where we invite you, the listener, to be a fly on the wall. Hopefully, you'll experience a world you've never seen before. I'm your host, Daniel Levin, and welcome to the show. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Mosaic Podcast. I should have recorded this line because I think I say it just about every single podcast. But today I want to say it as if I never said it before. I just met this man on a call maybe a week ago. His PR people contacted me about being on the show. But how is it possible to meet somebody that you've never met before and feel like they're your brother from 1,000 years? I felt just such an instant love for this man and the work that he's doing, and such an instant connection to him that it was. We spoke about should he be on the podcast. I knew from the moment I set eyes on him that I was just enjoying the time that we had together because we booked the time. But I knew he was going to be on the podcast, and this is what I enjoy most about the Mosaic Podcast is that I meet a lot of people, and I meet a lot of different types of people. And to be able to introduce these people to the people that I love, the people that I know. So to be able to introduce people that I love to people that I love, what could be a greater world than that, right? And to be able to do it, especially in this time where we're isolated and alone, and much of what we have is just what we have in this screen in front of us. But I invite you in this interview to not only listen to the words, but to feel a vibration that's underneath us. Both of us do work vibrationally. And just feel the eminence of a vibration that's beneath the words, that's underneath them. That is actually slowly, gently, lovingly holding your heart, holding your spirit, and inviting you to take a step, your step, whatever that step is, one step closer into the world that you want to live in. Let me tell you a little bit about the man who I'm speaking of, so you have some historical reference, but I'm not a really good bio person, but let's do it a little bit, okay? After a career that scaled the heights of corporate success as a CEO of global companies, Angell decided to completely change his life and made a life-changing commitment to helping others in their search for peace, harmony, and happiness. During the last 10 years and his transformational journeys across Asia and South America, Angell had rare opportunities to study and meditate with master healers and teachers of all faiths. He's trained in shamanism, plant medicine, Reiki healing, Sufi healing, sound healing, shamanic breathwork, meditation, and the list could go on and on. But let's just hold it there. In 2015, Angell opened up the Sanctuary Shamanic Healing Center on his property in the Catskills in New York, where he does in-depth work with his clients, hosts workshops, runs retreats in the USA and Peru, and does online meetings now and interactions with people through group interactions. Because of COVID-19, it's harder for people to travel, so he's doing these online community workshops, which I hope we'll talk about a little bit here, and cultivates the land for organic vegetable farming, plant medicine, and honeybees. I'm going to put all of his contact information in the show notes. His website that you can go to is www.thesanctuaryheal.com. He has an Instagram account, both personal and business, that I'll list there as well. But we have the man right in front of us. So let's put all of that aside. And let's just say, Angell, what a pleasure and honor it is to meet you and have you here in the Mosaic Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure meeting you also in the last week and getting to connect. And like you said beautifully, to feel and hold brotherhood here, an old connection. So I'm very glad to be here today with you.
Yeah. Normally I start out completely different, but something in your bio so resonates with me because it's something that I did and most people have no idea how that happened. Tell me about that moment when you were running a big global country. I'm almost going to, it's almost a country. It was almost that big that it was a country, a big global company, and you walked away from it. What happened for you in that moment?
Well, I think it was interesting. It was, like making a big scissor with your legs, There was one part of me that was successful, at least on the metrics that we use for measuring success, which was, my job, my salary, the type of, environment I was in at my age. I was in my late 30s or mid 30s. And on the other side, which was what obviously created the whole change, was this inner collapse, this inner fall. So there was a rising, an outside rising, and there was an inner dropping. And at some point, those two extremes became so far away from each other that wearing the mask of happiness and joy and success and peace that you need to wear when you run a business with hundreds of people, and the discomfort, the pain, the traumas, the addictions that were the reality really of my life. That was what I knew of being true. The rest was just not that true to me anymore, was just unbearable. And it became unacceptable, basically. A lovely teacher of mine told me 15 years ago, he said, you only change in life when life as it is become unacceptable to you.
Yeah.
And I made it acceptable for a very long time. And that became this moment where I was like, I'm done with this. There's no way back. I don't want to just tame the discomfort anymore, which is a lot what a lot of us do. What I can do also sometime when I don't want to look at something.
Yeah.
And I say, well, let's be a bit more brave and courageous here, and let's do into that inner journey, really not knowing what was going to be there, to be honest. I was quite scared, a lot of fear on many levels. What people will say, what I'm turning my back to, financial security, my family, many, many things, were in my head telling me, don't do this. But there was definitely a very loud voice in my heart that I didn't want to end my life that way, because I could see myself. And that's what happened one day. I saw myself 40 years down the line in that same position, with more wealth, maybe a bigger company, maybe in a different country doing something slightly different, but doesn't matter much. But I could see myself as this old, angry man, very separated from the others, very entitled, very privileged, but that hasn't lived life, that missed out on life. And I cried. I cried a lot. It made me very sad to witness this version of me. And that was not acceptable to me. That was a big no there. I was like, I don't know what the other one is going to be, but I don't want to be that person. And that calls for big change usually when we look at that.
Huge changes. And so roughly how long ago was that you made that transition?
That was around 10 years ago now, pretty soon. And it was due to, it's funny because there was a couple of events like that. Usually we're quite hard to hear when it comes to those big voices inside of us.
Yes.
The creator or God or our inner wisdom, whatever we call it. So I had a couple of episodes one of them being on stage in front of thousands of successful people, receiving an awards for being the Entrepreneur of the Year nominee for that in the US. And when literally I went on stage and saw the depths of the lie of that is not success. This is not what you guys in the room wants to be. It's not what I said, but it's what I felt and what I heard in my heart. You don't want to be me. You don't want that trophy. Not like that, at least. Not with that inner struggle. And I left the stage and I collapsed.
Literally collapsed.
Yeah, literally collapsed. I just sat on the side outside the stage. I could hardly function. I was just like, this is too much. This is not okay. It's not okay. At least it was not okay for me, you know.
Yeah. Well, how could it be okay for anybody if you walk off and just collapse like that? So I love this conversation already, and I love you for your honesty and your vulnerability, and you're just straight up. And I had a very similar experience. I didn't take it as far as you took it. But after my parents passed away, I had the opportunity to move in with my aunt and uncle. My aunt was my mother's sister, and my uncle was a household name. And he looked at me for about 3 months while I was there and watched me and said, I don't have any sons. I would like to start you at the bottom of my company and work your way up to where I'm sitting. And in 10 years, I will mentor you to be there. And that was $1 billion company. And now it's many $billion company. And obviously that was not the path that I walked. But people always ask me, do you regret that? Do you look back at certain periods of time and wish, or could you go back now if they would even have you, which they wouldn't have me, I'm sure. But could you go back now with the consciousness that you have and do it differently than you did then? Do you ever have those sort of ideas?
I think the first few years, I definitely was tested about the choice. Yeah. I think it's very common in this experience from what I've heard and experience with people I've talked to. Kind of a test, a big job offering that comes and, you're struggling and trying to figure things out. And here something very clear comes. Here's a job, just sign the paper and on Monday you start and what you're going to do. And you know how to do it because you've done it before. And so no discomfort.
Yeah.
But I could visualize myself immediately. So I put myself in the spot and I was like, okay, what is going to be? And I was like, there's no way I can show up on Monday in that office and do that. There's no way. I'm going to play it again. And after a month, I'm going to run away. It's not going to take 10 years or 5 years. I knew it will take only a few months before I would just not find any meaning in this. I think we are always searching for meaning. Either spiritual or not, we define ourselves. We are always in search for meaning. Yeah. And we need to be careful about what we give meaning to.
Yes.
I always tell people, be careful which God you're praying to.
Yeah.
And if it's, the God of money and certain type of success, I'm not against financial success, by the way. You can be extremely financially successful.
Totally.
Nothing to do with that. But what are you praying for, really? What is driving you? And the meaning there in that old life was not present, at least for me.
Yeah.
It didn't have any meaning anymore.
So if you were to resurrect yourself back into that for a moment, and to just, because I bet there are people listening right now that are feeling maybe not the dichotomy that you felt that forced you, but the early warning signs of that dichotomy coming, that, and it just continues and continues and continues. And it gets to that place where the battle is so hard. The decision is it's so much to give up that we hold on to it for longer than we want to hold on to it, because it's a little scary until we collapse on the side of the platform for receiving Entrepreneur of the Year, or we do what happened to me. What would you say to people that could help them in this moment not be so scared of an incredibly scary decision?
Well, I think we need to, and one of the things I would say, which is not easy, by the way, to always embody and do, is to really fast forward our life and see ourselves on our deathbed,
Wow.
which could be tomorrow, by the way, which
Yeah.
could be in a week from now. We don't know when this is going to happen. And looking back and saying, am I going to be happy with where I am right now?
Wow.
I'm not talking in 40 years from now, but is this a place I'm going to be happy with to be that person? Because we're always chasing more money. We want to grow our own business or work for someone. And, we always see happiness as something that's going to happen in the future if I have this, if I have the right relationship, the right job, the right environment, I live in the right place. I mean, you just can name it. We have this long list of if. And then we start to realize, if we look back, that we've been chasing that our whole life already. And that somehow happiness is not a byproduct, because, I have a better job today than I had 10 years ago, that most people I know that are struggling and not happy with their life, if they really look back, they've done a lot of progress on their career and all of that.
Yeah.
But there is an unresolved question of purpose, of meaning, that is not being addressed. And that we can very clearly see, as if you look back, do you feel you are addressing that big question, this turmoil? Does any of what you've been doing, so your career, your job, your relationship, has really addressed this pain?
Yeah.
And usually this pain is totally unaddressed. It's just numbed more through all the things we can do. And I'm really good at it, at numbing the pain. I did that, and I can still do it, so I recognize that's obviously a beautiful quality of a human being, to want to live without too much struggle and feel good. And so we find our own medicine, either it's alcohol or distractions or drugs or whatever it is. Sometimes socially very busy can be a kind of drug, and we can feel the pain.
Yeah.
We can feel it. And we have right now this beautiful opportunity to slow down a little bit, for some of us at least, and to address this discomfort.
So there is so much I want to unpack in what you're saying, and I really want to just pause for a moment and just ask the listeners, if you were to die tomorrow, God forbid, but if you were to die tomorrow, would you look back on a life that you were proud of and that you loved living? Or would your song still be left inside your soul? Would what you've come here to do have played out or not played out? And without guilt, because I believe, at least in a system, that we come again and again and again. And so if we haven't done it, we'll do it, because it's just what has to happen. But we come here to do it now. And one of the things that I just admire so much about you, Angell, is your ability to encapsulate in clear, concise sound bits, almost, how hard it is and how beautiful it is. Because it is going to be scary to take that leap. It is going to be scary to do that. But are you happy? And so often we trade a momentary happiness. Because when I say to people, well, you got that raise, did it make you happy? Of course it made you happy. You got more money. How long did that happiness last?
Yes, and like you say, like sitting with that idea that if I die in the next hour, let's not take it in 5 years, let's say in the next hour.
Yeah.
Will I be content with what is left? Will I be content in the way I just left the relationship with my partner, with my parents, with the world?
Yeah.
Or will I have had like to live in a different place?
Yeah.
Because listen, if you're happy and content, don't change anything.
Totally.
It's like there's nothing to change.
Totally.
But if you sit there and you feel, no, there's that thing that I always wanted to do. There's that thing that I feel inside of me that I've not really resolved, that prevents me from really experiencing life from this place of expansion, this place of feeling really good in the world,
Yeah.
And for some people, the trigger of change might be even the others, like the suffering in the world, or things that, you know what, I don't accept that and I want to do something about it, and I have not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be always self-centered, but we often is start by that. But sometimes I know people that have done big changes just by going to give themselves into service to the others, and that changed them through that process of giving, which was a big part of my awakening process.
So, Angell, I'm going to get very personal with you if I can, because I feel I love you, brother. And it's very rare that I come to people with my stuff and say, and ask for their counsel. But it's so obvious to me that we want to live each moment as if it's our last moment. And yet I don't live each moment as if it's my last moment.
Mm.
I'm very, very happy with the life that I have in many areas of my life. But then I think, gosh, I wish I could show my wife the amount of love that I actually have for her.
Mm.
I wish I could not get caught in some of the small little pieces that happen that disrupt the totality of the picture. I call it the truth versus the honesty. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's honest to say, hey, this bugs me. But the truth is, I'm so happy to be with you. Mm. And who cares if that's one piece of the equation? Because the total picture is I love you so much and I'm so happy you're in my life. But I fear sometimes many times that I don't show that aspect of myself, of myself to her. And I know for me, there's a fear in loving, and I know she loves me more than anybody's ever loved me. So it's not that I won't feel loved, but it's that fear of just giving myself entirely. The only person I do that with is my daughter, who's developmentally delayed, who sort of counts on me, so I wonder if you could say to me, to other people, just from your experience, how do we go through that fear and that pain that keeps us from actually being the person that we want to be? Because I'm not who I really want to be with my wife, even though she knows I love her. I mean, we don't fight, we don't argue, but there's a quality to the love that I just wish I could give her, that she would know without any veil. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense to you, what I'm asking?
It does. And it's a very big question. I think it's at the heart of transformation.
Yeah.
And witnessing that difficulty sometimes to just plunge into love.
Yeah.
It's kind of always troubled me. Why are we resisting love so much?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a beautiful state of bliss potentially. Many years ago, we talked about that like a week ago, I think, together. Yeah. Many years ago, I was in a plant medicine ceremony in Peru. And in that moment, there was a moment during the ceremony where I went into that, what I would call creator state, that inner experience of that infinite love that I've read about in all the scriptures and all the traditions. And that way the love of the creator is casted on us. And I experienced it in my body, in literally every single cell of my beings, of my bones and my skins. And the intensity was so high. It was so profound for literally, probably went for 20 minutes. That I saw myself literally exploding into light. Mm-hmm. I could not find myself anymore. I don't know where my body was starting or ending. There was no more me and you and the room. And it was just this massive vibration of light. And I got really scared.
Yeah.
And the fear that came, it was where am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
Am I going to find myself back? How do I come back from this? My first fear was oh my God, I'm going to be stuck there.
Yeah.
And it was my mind taking over the experience of my heart, telling me, oh my God, I don't want that because there's no space for me there. and I breathed into it. And every time I took an inhale, it was like an expansion of that love. Like every inhale was this, like literally what I read about that in breath, and like this is light of the creator that's coming inside of me. And it was raising the vibration. And the exhale was calming it down. It was just a little bit calming there. And I came back, obviously, I'm not speaking from that state, but the beauty of it is that I had an experience of it. Yeah. And also had an experience of the resistance, which we need, in the question you asked. I think we need to bring a lot of self-love and self-compassion about being human, about our own incapacity sometimes to receive love, to even accept it, not even talking about giving it, but first accepting it, being fully held by someone, by women, by a man, by the world, is something sometimes that we do resist. Because we need to be so naked in being held, completely showing ourselves. And if there is a spot in us that we have hidden a little bit that we don't like, it's a bit scary to be fully seen and fully loved by someone. But to me, that's the gateway into compassion for the others. It's the gateway into compassion that, I wish, my brother, I could show you how much I really love you and care for you. And if sometimes you can't show it, I can see that in myself. So if sometimes you're not perfect with me and you say something that hurts me, or, it's just a reflection of my own struggle, of my own, trying to figure it out, which is what life is about. We're trying all to figure it out in our own ways. So to me, that opens me to a lot of compassion, to really a lot, but not what we call idiotic compassion, like true compassion. Like I'm feeling it in my body because it's something I experience and I'm connecting to it. I'm willingly allowing myself to feel the pain of separation, of not being able to fully connect, maybe to tell you with the exact words how much I love you, the depth of it. And we choose that as being human. We have chosen somehow that experience of being in that very complex species that has this whole possible range of emotion. And to me, more and more as I dive in it, is the pathways through all of that is recognizing the sacredness of all my feeling.
Love
so
that.
Even when I want to separate, there's something sacred there. Like the creator wants me to experience that pain of separation. How beautiful is that I can experience that pain and see it and feel it. And this duality is human, We always, in spiritual community, it's easy to go, well, we're just light and love. And we come from a non-dual space. That's true. But we are in a dual form. We are experiencing duality. And part of bringing back together those extremes is, for me, the way.
I love how you're responding and how you're showing up in your response also. And as we spoke before, we both shared that experience. Mine wasn't plant medicine. Mine was through a process of meditation. But something happened where I literally felt like every cell in my being, and I write about it in my book, The Mosaic. Every cell in my being just felt that it was every cell of every being, and that I didn't know where I started and where I ended and where something else started, and that there was just this complete sense of unity with the world that didn't even know anything but unity, because it was all that there was. And I remember the fear that I had in that moment of like, what would happen? Will my wife come home and find me on the floor? Does this mean that I'm going to die? What is that like? And what I heard today and what you said, which really touched me, which I didn't hear before, maybe just because I couldn't hear it, was that when we think about that space, there was no positive or negative. There was no judgment or non-judgment. Like even it's almost as if the divine wants us to know even our fear is divine. And when we can see that moment that scared us out of the moment that we've prayed for our whole life to have, for me, that was the moment that was like what I wanted for my whole life, to come to live in this world as a completely connected human being that had a spiritual connection to everything in the world. that means the fear that I have is also okay, because that's a part of the feelings that a human being has. And so rather than push it aside and say, like I did in my question to you, which was, I wish I could do this better. Maybe I just love and accept the fact that this is who I am in this moment. And one of the images that I love about the mosaic is that it's made up of all these different pieces, and no piece defines the whole totality of it. But it's all these different pieces that make it, and maybe the feeling of just separateness is just one small piece of the totality, and we have to feel that in order to feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of just thinking off the top, but I think
we do, yeah, I think especially with what's going on in our world, not just in the last few months because of the pandemic, but the revealing of the pain in the world.
Yeah.
The revealing of the separation, the revealing of inequality, which is very obvious, and all what we call shadow, anger and confusion, separation, all those things are so alive right now.
Yeah.
That it's a beautiful opportunity to allow ourselves to feel them. Yeah. Very often people say, "Oh, I have no fear about this thing." It's true that ultimately, we should not be afraid of any experience.
Yeah.
But it's also true that fear is a human experience. And it can be separating to just say to people, I have no fear. If someone doesn't have the tools for that and is entangled into fear, or is living at home with someone that's abusive to them, fear is a place of survival. It's a place that our body tells us, hey, there's something at risk. By the way, we're only alive as a species right now because we have experienced fear. If not, we'll have been eaten by all the lions in the savannas, 50,000 years ago. So we survived because we were afraid.
Yeah.
And also because we loved and we care and we took care of each other. But let's stop putting more value in one side or the other.
I love that.
The shamanic path walks the middle line, like the middle way for the Buddha. The red road, on the shamanic path, as native people tell us, the red road is walking at the middle. It's not being too spiritual. It's not being non-spiritual. And even saying that are already separating what is spiritual, what is not.
Right.
So that depth of level of compassion is what we need to have for all our feelings and for each other. There's this beautiful visual in Buddhism that is about representing what is compassion, because if we want to kind of separate that from idiotic compassion, it's like, oh yeah, I feel I'm sorry for people that are starving, or right now that have to work in hospital, or people that are hungry, whatever it is. And the picture is just a picture. The teaching is this one picture. It's a mother that's on the edge of the river, and her baby is drowning into the water, and she has no arm. She has no arm. And that's how they represent compassion. It's that place of feeling the full despair and grief and pain of that loss, and the love, and not being able maybe to do something just by giving our loving presence. Obviously, it's a teaching. It's a parable, Right. It's not saying, you can do nothing about other people's suffering. It's not what it is about. Yeah. It's about feeling compassion, not trying to save someone, but trying to be fully present with the pain that we are experiencing as a mother watching her baby drowning. So powerful.
I love that. And I hear something, if I can share with you what I hear, because I never saw that picture or heard that before. And I love Buddhism and I love the practice. Mm-hmm. So often when we see people in pain, we want to help them and fix them and reach out to them and do what we can to help them. And what I see in that image of the woman with no arms is the most compassionate, beautiful thing we can do is not try and fix them or help them or change them or do anything or any of the things that we think we've been taught to do, but just to love them and pray for them and hold them in the space of knowing that everything in the world will work out. And what is happening to them is exactly what is meant to happen is right to happen, and that there is compassion in that moment just by being there. And I never saw that image or never felt that image, but I saw the image of me so often when people say something to me, and my desire, oh, I just want to fix you. I want to help you. I want to do this. And in my book, The Mosaic, Mo meets all these people that he thinks are just common, ordinary people. And he wonders why he's sitting with them, because he's looking for, the adults told him his parents are in heaven, and he's looking for people that can help him, show him heaven. Mm-hmm. And what he realizes is that these people, just in loving him and being themselves and sharing with him their story, have completely transformed him, because he saw them one way and now he sees them a totally different way. Mm-hmm. And when he and each one of them helped him see the world entirely differently than the way they ever saw it before. He saw it before. And he realizes that when he looks to the right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and motioning him to come through to a parallel reality where he introduces him to the wise one who's the keeper of the mosaic. And it's just in the simple shift of perception, it's seeing things differently, that heaven's been there the whole time. And so I love that image. I'm gonna borrow that image from you of the woman, of the mother with no arms watching the baby drown, because we so naturally want to help. We so naturally want to jump in. We so naturally want to save. We so naturally want to fix. And there's something so beautiful in just loving and blessing and holding the space for them to go through what they're going through.
And I want to extend that and say, it's not about not saving someone from danger. Obviously, if you have someone in extreme suffering, it's not like if someone is begging in the street and we can extend a hand, we're not going to give some money or some food.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell us, do not act, do not be loving. She's showing us the depths of love.
Beautiful.
And in that case, she has no arms, so she can do nothing with her arm. But we do have arms, we do have a heart, we do have, money or sometimes resources or skills. And so it's not saying don't do anything, but it's saying first, bring your complete loving presence.
Love it.
Loving presence, because then you can do what's required from there.
Angell, in leaving your corporate position and coming to the work that you do, which let's talk about the work you do a little bit, because I don't want to leave that untold in this, because I love what you're doing. So can we take a moment and talk about what you do at Sanctuary Heal?
Well, the Sanctuary and it's hard for me sometimes to even say the work I do, because for me it's more a way of life. It's an invitation, the work we do, to a different way of relating with ourselves and with the others. That's as simple.
Beautiful.
And we do that through nature-based practices, ancient wisdom based on, many cultures around the world, trauma work, and a lot of techniques, energy work and breath work and other things that help that. But really, people say, oh, you're doing healing work. And it's true that we are healing ourselves and we are healing, our communities and our planet. But really, it's more a shift in being, the shift of the way we have been doing things for too long now that doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an acknowledgement about the state of the world, the suffering in the world, and our responsibility in it. Mine, yours, everybody's responsibility. Not just some people out there, not just people that are elected, not just people in another country, not just people from the other political party. No, my responsibility.
Yeah.
Because there is power in discovering, what can I do about it? What do I want to do about it?
Yeah.
Because then I can really reflect. And I feel that for me, all the work and all our offerings is to reconnect you to this capacity about first feeling the reality, seeing clearly, because we're very confused or where the issue comes from. It's very easy to point fingers at, oh, it's because of this or that person. No, it's taking back the responsibility within, and then having the tools, having enough power, having enough energy, so we can create a different reality for ourselves and therefore a different world. So it's changing the narrative. Very often I say, well, the main thing you're going to get is probably a change of narrative towards yourself, your own story, what you're telling yourself all the time. Sometimes it's not very loving.
Yeah.
And therefore the story you're going to tell the world. You mentioned, this song that we carry inside. That's always something beautiful I always connected to. Yeah. Are you singing your song? Do you feel like you are the cardinal bird outside? Like there's all those beautiful cardinals that are back right now in New York.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them and singing, and they're beautiful. But do you sing your song? Are you singing the song of the pain of your childhood?
Yeah.
Or the song of the pain of your community? Nothing wrong with that. But is there another song? Like that is yours. That is your medicine.
Yeah.
And so that's why we try to offer people to reconnect to that. And it's a life process. It's not like, hey, we have a magic stick here, but it's an invitation. It's an invitation.
It's a lifestyle. I love that it always blows my mind how similar I can feel to people that I don't know, and how their purpose and my purpose have been brought together so beautifully. And we spoke of this on our call, but I would really like to talk with you further about doing some work together, because my mission before 19 came, my nickname for this beautiful pause that the world's been given, is I was about to set out May 1st, 4 days from now, on a trip around the world to sit and listen to people and try and help them to hear and share with me what their song is, what they would want to say to the world if they were listened to. Because so many times, so many people just feel like my voice doesn't matter. Even if I have a voice, there's so much noise out there. How will I ever be heard? And so what I wanted to do is sit on street corners and in bookstores and in convention centers and in government offices and in businesses and in wherever it is, and just ask people, what is it they really want to say? What would they want the world to know if they could tell the world something?
Mm-hmm.
And it came to me as the result of sitting with a homeless man. And I asked him, what would you say to people if you could only say one thing to them? And he said, I would ask him to spend 10 minutes with someone they don't know and just ask them how they are and just listen. And I said, Corey, out of all the things you could have asked for, why that? And he said, well, Danny, you don't know this, but about 3 weeks ago, I was sitting on the corner, and that day particularly was hard. People were spitting at me and beating and punching me and kicking me. And I've been beaten up so many times just because I'm homeless. And I thought, what am I doing? What's the purpose that I have in the world? I'm only bringing people pain. I'm going to go around the corner this evening and into the dark, and I'm just going to take my life. And not 2 minutes after I said that, a man came and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said to me, how are you, brother? And I just started crying, and I said, not that well. And he sat down with me. And he just listened. And you know what? It only took about 10 minutes. It didn't take that long. But after he did that with me, I realized I can't go home now and kill myself. I can't go around the corner here and kill myself. Someone actually cares enough to spend that time with me to listen to me. And he said, that man will never know he's the reason why I'm alive today. Well, Corey, the man that I sat with, has no idea that he was the one that inspired this trip that I'm about to take, to do exactly what he wanted people to do and to film it and make a documentary out of it.
Beautiful example of the butterfly effect of love.
Yes. For those who don't know, tell us the butterfly effect of love.
Well, the butterfly effect is the idea that one butterfly here in the world can create a tornado on the other side of the planet, because the butterfly moves the air and those ripple effects go over there. And here you are just a little bit of someone walking in the street and just with pure love, not trying to fix anybody, just say, hey, I have some extra love. Let's give it someone who might need it here.
Yeah.
and that prevented that person to take his life, and that here brought you onto maybe bringing more love into opening people's hearts through maybe this journey you're going to do one day. And you can see this one hand touch on the shoulder, which took nothing, which cost nothing. I mean, it took some love and care and compassion. We talk a lot about compassion. It took some compassion here. But this man was not looking to be rewarded for what he did, not to be seen. He just cared.
Yeah.
And you have the butterfly effect of love that's changing the life of so many. Just one hand touch on the shoulder.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that? That we have this gift that has been given to us. All of us can put a hand on the shoulder of a stranger.
So thank you for that. I love you, brother, so much. I just even just in the little conversations we had, I love the way you see the world. I love who you are. I love how you show up. What surprised you most about this second version of your life?
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about it.
Good.
I think maybe it's just something I've never experienced in my first version of it, which is that realization that really there is no others. That very often what I hear or see, experience out there is always in me, like in an embodied way, like I can feel that pain in my body. That's the way I work, because I can feel it in my body, so I can know what's moving there.
So in other words, just to be clear, when you're sitting and with somebody, you are empathetic enough that you can feel where their block is, where their pain is.
My body will tell me where it's moving in their body. Even if I'm on the phone, I do a lot of remote sessions, so I don't have to be in person, because we have this innate capacity to connect. 100%. It's not a special gift. It's a gift that we all have. But I never felt that before, because obviously there was so much more noise.
Yeah.
And also attention into just me.
Yeah.
So that's been really a revelation, because it's part of the teaching in the Indian cosmovision in my tradition, that at some point on your altar, that prayer comes, that there is no others. That's how I say it. There is no others.
Beautiful prayer.
And it is prayer of unity. And the ego is a shadow of that prayer, the ego that's separate. But I think starting to experience it and to really feel it really relaxed me, because then, I'm not alone in my stuff. I don't have to spend any energy trying to fix anybody, really. I have to do just my work. But my self-work is a gift for the world. Ultimately, we're not doing this work for ourselves. We're doing it for the others. So it's a funny prayer. There's no others.
There is no other, and we're doing it for the...
My whole life is not about me. It's about the others. So that's a beautiful way to kind of dance with that thing that the mind can't comprehend. You say, well, it's two different things.
Yeah.
The heart can get that. The heart can get in it and just be with that prayer. And I think for me, that's been quite revealing. It's been something like a aha moment. That's a possibility here. So that's something very different.
Yeah. Well, I love the Zen Koan-ness of, there is no me, and I'm doing it for others, and there is no other. And I'm doing it, right? Because in really, like, what I hear from what you're saying in that, and correct me if what I'm hearing isn't correct, is that when we become so sensitive that our body can feel what's going through another body, whose body is feeling what to whom? And when we heal the body, we heal the body. And it doesn't matter which body the body is a part of, right?
Exactly.
And there's something...
It's a paradox. It's a paradox for the mind. The mind really doesn't like this paradox. Like, what do you mean? Pain and love is the same thing. Like, it's all sacred. The mind really struggles with that.
Yeah.
My life is not about me, it's about the others, and there is no others. And so the mind
That should be your tagline.
yeah,
My life is. I love
but
that.
it's true.
No, it really is. I mean, it's
Both statements that seems quite opposite. And I think in opposite statements, when we can hold them together, we are in presence of God.
yeah. There is no opposite at that point.
Yeah. God is only present in the union of the opposites, and only the heart can really. I can be really sad and all grief and feel a lot of love at the same time. That's something the heart can do.
I love that. So tying up a little bit before we go to the last thing that I ask everybody, I love this idea of there is no separateness and tying up the other and the me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you now connect the pieces of the life of the CEO of the global corporation
Mm-hmm.
and the shaman?
Like in terms of their experience, you mean, or
in the sanctuary? And can you tell me what you've taken from each to make each no longer the other? Is that? I mean, do you see where I'm saying? You see where I'm going?
Yeah, I like what I gain from each. You mean, or what is the wisdom from each?
Just like each experience that we have, like to me, the beauty of the Mosaic is each experience is made up of a lot of pieces, and then all those pieces come together in another experience and another experience. But they're similar pieces. That like who you were walking through the CEO and who you are walking through the shaman isn't really different, except the experiences are somewhat different. And so, how do you connect the other to the same? And there is no other. Like even in that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit to me, to ask the butterfly how it connects to the caterpillar. And there's obviously, as you look, not much left one from the others, and yet, they are essential to connect and to become that cycle of life, to become that butterfly. So to me, I see it as the same. I feel so much gratitude for all my past experiences and that life as a CEO that brought wisdom, that brought skills, that brought connections, that brought the pain, that forced me into my work. Without that pain, I would probably, not have had to make the changes.
So let me interrupt. Let me jump in a minute because the pain is so obvious to understand. But what I want to know is, can you see the joy of that infiltrating into the joy of this? Like, what did you learn as being the CEO that has now made what you're doing now so dramatically easier because you've gone through the experience of doing what you did before? Not from a pain perspective, but from a happiness perspective, from an intuitive understanding perspective.
Well, there's definitely a lot of skills I learned, working with very large group of people and talking in public to sometimes thousands of people, building, something from scratch with a friend that became, this beautiful project, really learning to trust, my own capacity to create in the world the things I want to materialize. Even if what I created is like, oh, maybe I want to create something different, but at least I saw this capacity that we can do anything we want. Then we have to choose carefully what we want to do, what we want to create. So I see a lot of that. And also today, I do more and still, a lot of offerings for corporations, for groups that want to bring those nature-based practices or breath work or transformation into their team and their environment, their purpose, through a very different way than just traditional coaching or traditional maybe meditation that say, hey, you know what, I think there's something there. Yeah. Can we put it into a format that is acceptable, that can be understood with different words? And because I've lived that world for almost 20 years, I can understand the pain that is there. I can understand the need that are there. And for me, I find it, I can bridge back very easily, bridge back into it. Tomorrow, you put me with 10 CEOs, of $100 million company. I can completely fit there.
Yeah.
It might take me a little minute to be careful about some words and that and remind myself, but I know I can bring value there,
Yeah.
And we all can, by the way. It's not just me.
Totally.
Because those skills of open heart and all of the skills that I've learned from my elders, from those practices, they are skilled for humanity. They're not skilled for just people living in the forest in the Amazon.
Yeah.
They are skilled for each and every one of us, whatever our life look like. It's not about going to live in the forest.
Yeah.
At least maybe not right now.
So one of the beautiful things that I see in Mosaic and the image of Mosaic is that so often when we leave one place to another place, we leave behind that place and we go into another place. We go from the caterpillar to the butterfly, and it seems like we leave behind the shape and the form to become this new form and emerge. What I'm really inquisitive about, not only with you, but about me and my life, because I've had so many different pieces, so many different lifetimes that I've lived in this lifetime, is now not only how does what I'm doing now currently could help what I was doing then, but how was what I was doing then able to help what I'm doing now? That there is no other. That's why I love that so much about what you said. There is no other. It wasn't that this current life contributes to the past life, but the past life also contributes, because there is no other. There is only how do we play together and bring all of the pieces of this mosaic together to make one life that we have value in everything and pain in everything. And how does the pain of the past life resolved in the glory of the present life, and how does the pain of the present life get resolved in the glory of the past life? And if that's even possible, those are the places that I would like to play with you on after this, under separate conversation, to see how we might create something that integrates, because I think it would make the bridge much easier to walk across if we could bring some of it together with us. What I found in the mosaic is oftentimes when we change lives, when we have a revelation, when we go to phase 2 of our life, so often we leave phase 1 behind, like a rocket ship that just drops that initial and drops it into the air. But the mosaic is not made up of drop pieces in the air. It's made up of pieces that all in its totality create this beautiful artistry that's called our life. And the joy of what we used to do has a place to solve some of the pains of where we're headed, and the joy of where we are has some place in solving the pains of where we used to be, and the joys of both can play together. And there's pains in both that when we admit them can allow us to see where our pain is, and our pain doesn't change as a result of changing something out externally. Are you with me? And so one of the places that I would like to play with you, because I feel so aligned to what you're saying, and yet we're completely different in the way we approach it, is to think about how we might be able to create a bridge for people who know that where they are is not where they really want to be, but are scared to death to go to where they've been, because the change has been the caterpillar to the butterfly, where it's almost unrecognizable who they were before. But I believe there's a bridge where we bring together all the pieces where it's totally recognizable. And that if we could do that, what a beautiful opportunity that would be to walk people fearlessly from one place to the other. Does that make sense?
Complete sense, yeah.
And I would love to sit with you and just figure out how we create that, because I feel like it's something that's being asked of us in our time together here.
Yeah, and there is, many tools out there to start building the bridge from where we are.
Yeah.
Because that's how you build a bridge. You start where you are and you start reaching there. But very often we don't know what are the stones to put on the edge of that river. Yeah. And it doesn't feel the cliff is too high and we're afraid to go close. But there's beautiful ancestral tools and tools out there that allows us to build that foundation, that strong foundation from our side of the river that can start then reaching out.
Totally.
but it goes very often to redo our own foundation in our own house, in our own bridge.
Yeah.
If we don't have strong foundation and we want to build a new house, so what's not going to work?
Yeah.
We need to descend and to go back to the roots and to go back into different ways to approach what is already there, because we can only work with what's there anyway. I never knew what was going to happen to me. I could not forecast that or plan it. There was none of that. What I'm doing today was in my plan 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I decided to change a foundation, to build a different person, to at least access a different person. That other me was there. All of the me's are there. If you take a piece of the DNA, a cell on the caterpillar and a cell on the butterfly, and you make an analysis, it's the same DNA. You would not know which one is the butterfly or the caterpillar.
Love it.
What's different is that it chooses to express something different.
Love it.
Choose to go to transformation. And obviously something else is pushing it. Something else push it to go into a chrysalid, into a butterfly. But the DNA is the same. The information is the same. Is accessing it differently. Such a beautiful reminder for us that I can really be that butterfly if I feel I'm a caterpillar. And by the way, some caterpillars are really beautiful, so nothing against that. But it shows a capacity for complete rebirth.
Yeah.
But there is tools for that, and we've lost them. In our Western world, we don't have rituals, we don't have rites of passages.
Yeah.
We've lost how to process grief. There's a lot of grief right now in our world, how to process all of that. And so if we don't have those tools, it's really hard to go to another place when in the first place here, we don't have any strengths already in the present.
Yeah. Angell, we could talk forever, and I hope we will. But in honor of your time and in honor of the time of the podcast, we're winding down now. So let me first, before I ask you the final question, let me ask you when people want to get in touch with you, and we'll have everything in the show notes, but I just want you to tell them how to get the best place to come to you, because they're going to want to come to you. And I hope that they do, because in coming to you, I think they will come to themselves, because there is no other. How would they do that?
Well, they can go on our website, thesanctuaryheal.com. We have, plenty, 2 to 4 events a week online. Join not just me, but the community, because, we're a big group of people from all over the world that are committing to writing a new story. And we're writing it together. It's not about my story or your story. It's like, how do we write a story that works for everyone? That is going to be for everyone. That is going to be for the next 7 generations, as our elders are telling us. It's not a story about our generations, for the next 7 one. How do we do that? And we can only do it together. So come, join those places, Obviously, you want to work one-on-one with me, reach out to me, but experience the group, experience the community, experience that feeling, and see if it's right for you. Feel like, hey, maybe there's something there. You might be surprised, maybe you're like, I don't know, it's all those things, and then experience it. Do a breath work with us, do a shamanic meditation, come to one of the prayers, even if you've never prayed before, and just feel into it. And if you're not changed and nothing is happening, and then, well, it's not for you, but I bet that something is going to be touched, because we are speaking from that place, that we share in common, that heart.
Yeah. And I really want to encourage anyone who is listening to do just that. Go there, experience what Angell's offering, what the sanctuary is offering. Go there online. When COVID-19 ends, go there in person. When COVID-19 goes, go on retreats with him. And we will be through this 19 at one point. So set your intentions now for where and how you want to make the next version of your life look. Mm. Angell, when you look at the world, is this the world you always dreamed of handing over to the next generation?
Well, I am. Sometimes say, I'm a very hopeful pessimist.
There is no other. I like That might be the name of our podcast, The Hopeful Pessimist. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah. And or hopeless, optimist. However you want to trick it.
Right.
What I mean by that is that our world is the way it is. It's the way it is. It's when I was born, it's what I inherited from, and this is what I'm creating. I'm not going to complain about the world. Is there things in it that I think should change? Yes. My power is then to create the change. It's to be, embracing myself, embracing the others, and see how we can change it.
Totally.
I can rant for hours about what's wrong in the world, and I can rant for probably even longer about what's beautiful about that world. There's so much beauty right now, still, and yes, there's a lot of suffering that is a reality for way too many people. So, like we spoke earlier, can I hold both of that in my heart?
Yeah.
Very often, spiritual people, they say, oh, you need to be the hollow bone, this empty bone. And I often say, well, my version is that you need to be a hollow bone with a heart.
Love it.
With a heart.
Yeah.
Don't forget that, because being a hollow bone sometimes can be very just like disconnecting from the others, and like also renouncing our responsibility.
Yeah.
We're responsible for the world of today. So either we like it or not, we find it beautiful or not, we are all responsible. Everybody that's listening.
Yeah.
And if we feel differently, then we need to look stronger in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean look with criticism or with hate or self-blame. No. Look with like, how interesting, there might be something that I could do differently.
Yeah.
And then we find our power. And we can make it even more beautiful if we don't find it beautiful, or change it completely. If we don't like anything, just change it.
So with that in mind, can you give one practice that people could start right now that would help them lean into seeing the world, seeing the beauty in the world?
Mm. I think for me, it's kind of a default mode to see that beauty and to see the pain at the same time. It's always been there.
Love it.
I'm blessed. I thank God, the Creator, for that, for giving me that capacity to feel both together. But I think very often when we can't see the beauty in the world, and when we only see darkness, or the world can feel very daunting, it's very often because of our own pain. It's just a reflection. If I'm having a really bad day, probably I'm going to look at the world around and nothing is going to go very right.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to talk to me in the right way. I'm never going to feel I'm going to be enough that day. So it's very easy to project my inner state. One of the things that really helped me when I am in those moments is to ask myself, what would love do? So when I say something harsh and I'm in that state that I can't find my good speak, I go back, what would love say?
Mm-hmm.
Is it what would love say? Is it what would love do? If I go on a rant on Facebook about my life on this, is it what really would love do?
Mm-hmm.
And when we really sit with that question, what would love do in that case? What would love think? How would love speak to itself?
Mm-hmm.
Then we can find a different wisdom, because that's really the ultimate goal here. Is to be in that place. And very often I realize I'm not speaking, acting, or self-talking like it was love.
Yeah.
And I can change that, and then the world is going to start looking different. My inner world, and therefore your world, the world of everybody. And it's hard to realize how far we are from what would love say or would love do very often.
Mm.
We talked about it earlier when you talk about, your wife and what you want to say. And we're all like that. We're all like that. And just tapping into it, there's something quite sweet and tender and beautifully heartbreaking to realize
Yes.
It's a very tender place to look at it.
Yeah.
But there is power there. I really believe I've experienced there is beautiful transformation power there if we can sit with those questions.
Angell, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What an honor it is to be with you. And I want to just take 1 minute, if I can, and summarize for the people that come all the time. I want you to sit with this podcast, if you can, and play it again and maybe again. There are so many nuggets that were spoken of here. What does this idea of there is no other mean? How beautiful an idea, how beautiful a concept. What would it take for you to experience the experience of being completely connected and there being no other? I want you to think about some of the words that he said, some of the stories that Angell told, of when people come to him, whether it's over the phone or in person. His body literally tells him what's going on in another person's body, and he can feel it in his body and work with it in his body and that does something to the body of the person coming to him that lifts that block or that pain or whatever it is that he was working with. I want you to think about, what would love do? How would love speak? What would it sound like if you could hear that when you speak to yourself or when you speak to another or when you function in the world that you live in? What would love do? 4 very simple words. But if we would just get those, if we would sit with those, if we would become those, if we would understand those 4 simple words, what would our life look like?
Mm-hmm.
The gift of this podcast is that we're able to bring people like Angell to you, who you may or may not ever on your own have met. I am so thankful that I met him. And I am so thankful to bring someone I love to people I love, so that you can meet, because that's what love does. Again, thank you, Angell, for your time.
Thank you so much, brother. Yeah.
Thank you, people who are listening, for spending your time with us. If you like this podcast, please give it a 5-star or however stars you want. I don't want to tell you to do something you don't feel, but if you like it, give it 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. Write a review of it, and then share it with your friends. Not because we're trying to build the podcast, but because the information here and the conversations here are so real and vital. Not only in this podcast, but in many of the podcasts that we've had. I have people that I've interviewed say to me, I've never experienced another podcast like this. It's so different. It's so nice not to be asked the same questions over and over again. So share it with your friends. What would love do? Until next time, God bless you all. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Mosaic Podcast. If you like what you heard, you can find out more information on my website, themosaiconline.com. And if you want to get a copy of the book that started the whole thing, The Mosaic, please go to Amazon.com and search for The Mosaic by Daniel Levin. It's been an honor spending this time with you. Remember, nothing is as it seems, and we are all connected.